Thank you. One of the advantages for those of us who work here full-time at the Kennedy Center is we get to watch the trajectories of our alums. And it sort of, as time goes on, becomes almost like my children. I look back and say, wow, I can't believe my kids were that young. I feel like Spencer's like a student in my class. I mean, it feels like it's just been a year or something, but it's been a few more years than that. And in watching the trajectories of our alums, one of the things that we notice consistently are the things that our alumni achieve, their accomplishments, the steps along the way. I know from having taught the IS 100 class and interacting with students on a pretty regular basis that careers and jobs and your future is something that's always, if not almost always, on your mind, and is very important and one of those topics that sometimes I think we can do a better job to address. So with that in mind, that we're really pleased to welcome Spencer Edgin and his wife Missy. Let me give you his brief background. Spencer Edgin will join General Electric's Experienced Commercial Leadership Program in July, which was recently ranked #1 in the world by Businessweek for rotational programs for MBA graduates. Between his undergraduate and his MBA degree, Spencer worked as an independent insurance agent for a startup property and casualty insurance brokerage firm in Dallas, Texas. He worked as an operations manager for Universal Forest Products, an international lumber company, and field marketing coordinator with Black & Decker in a sales and marketing development program. It was in that position I remember he had some involvement with his outreach to Hispanics, kind of working nationwide. I remember some exciting things that you were doing there, as well as with Yellow Book USA as a media consultant in Salt Lake City, where he helped local small and medium-sized businesses generate leads. Spencer received a Bachelor of Arts in International Studies and a minor in Latin American Studies from BYU, and just recently completed his MBA from the David Eccles School of Business at the University of Utah. He and his wife Missy are the parents of one child, Braden. And when we were talking about this trajectory and what he's been doing since he graduated from the Kennedy Center, I have used Spencer, hopefully not in vain, in a number of conversations with students pretty regularly when I talk about what are the things that make a difference and what are those little switch points in your life that will help you as you build upon your degree. I think Spencer clearly represents us well, but also in many ways is pretty typical of the conversation and the issues that a lot of our students have. So again, we're very pleased to welcome back to the Kennedy Center, and hope you'll join me in welcoming Spencer Edgin.
So thank you very much, Corey. Corey, as we were going through the program, I not only got my degree from this college, but I also was part of the MUN program when I was here. And Corey was kind of like the older brother to all the members of the program. Very fun, very energetic, but at the same time, somebody that you could rely on to give you some sound advice and to provide you with some good direction as you move through the program. As I'm sitting here today, I'm reminded of the story of the farmer who shows up to church on Sunday, and he's the only member of the congregation there present, and the preacher gets up and looks out at the congregation, and he thinks, well, let's have at it. So he starts going through his sermon and just really, giving it just to the one farmer, and he sees the farmer in the back row kind of nodding off, and he gets down off the pulpit, walks down and shakes him on the shoulder. He's like, hey, wake up. Goes back up, starts preaching to him again and bringing it all to him. He starts to fall asleep again, walks back down, and this happens 2 or 3 times, and then he says, sir, you've come here, you're one of the sheep, and I'm here feeding you. And he said, mister, if I only had one cow show up for the feeding, I wouldn't feed him the whole bale of hay, So I'm going to try to make this a little interesting for you all. And I am by no means an expert when it comes to career paths or what you should do in every single scenario. But I hope that by sharing some of my experiences with you, that there's some tidbits here and there that you'll be able to find that will help you as you start to form your career. By a show of hands, how many of you here know exactly what you want to do throughout your career? We've got a maybe. Anybody else? So I would say this is pretty typical of our population, that most of us don't have a clear idea specifically what we want to do throughout our career. And so we kind of form it as we go. given our circumstances, what's the best we can do moving forward? And that being the case, I'd like to, the whole topic here today is based on how, what do you do with the Kennedy Center degree? And I'd like to kind of illustrate that by going back to some things that I've had to do in this whole process. And it is a process. It's a process that continues on for me even today. We'll never stop thinking about what we're going to do next. The three things that I gained from my degree in the Kennedy Center, and I hope to illustrate this through some experiences I'll share. I'll share a handful of experiences, and then we'll, have an open discussion. And but the three big things were I was able to further develop skills in working with diverse groups of people. For instance, my MUN class that I was a part of for 2 semesters, we had people from Palestine, from Egypt, all over the Middle East, Asia Pacific, Central and South America, and obviously the USA. And being able to work towards solutions for problems with people with such diverse backgrounds and even perspectives was a skill set that I think is invaluable. If you're in these programs, take advantage of that. There's a principle there that you'll use the rest of your life. The second was strengthen abilities to form and create good arguments. We're always going to have some sort of confrontation, with whether it be a very peaceful confrontation where we're just discussing ideas and maybe differing on opinions, or whether it's something that affects a large organization. Being able to create good arguments and support your perspectives helps to move your initiatives forward. And third, negotiations. It's like real estate. What's the most important thing you can learn? It's location, location, location. Well, with anything in business, with anything in life, it's all about negotiation, negotiation, negotiation. And we learned that quite a bit with our experiences, Model UN, whether we were practicing in class or out in front of our major delegation. I was assigned to the UN Committee on Trade and Development when we went out to New York City for the for that program. My partner and I were representing Syria, and the experiences that I gained personally from that, working with her, and how we were able to move our resolutions forward. We were able to even work with quote-unquote enemies of other nation states or what have you to get them signed on and agreeing with our proposals. To me, it was a very exciting thing to do. Not because what we were doing was real life, but the principles were. Being able to get everybody on the same page and walking in the same direction towards certain initiatives. A little bit about my background has been shared already with Corey, but I'll tell you, as an undergrad, I had, at my junior year, I realized that I didn't feel like I was an attractive prospect to companies that were coming to hire or recruit from BYU. I felt like I didn't have the skill sets or that I was lacking certain things to make me an attractive entity for one of these corporations. So I began to ask questions. Number one, always ask questions. You can never ask too many questions. What should I do? How should I become more attractive to these organizations that are hiring? And what I found was I needed some additional experience. And one of the things that's been key to my development was I was asking around, and upon asking a lot of questions, I found that there was a young lady through mutual friends that was in charge of an internship program with Merrill Lynch here in Provo. And I thought Merrill Lynch, they're a well-respected banking organization, and I struck up a conversation with her, and through subsequent conversations, I found that I could actually, even though I wasn't a business major, I could actually get into this internship program. And a few months later I was accepted into that program. Now, nothing I did in that actual internship here in Provo was illustrious or was a life changer. But what it was a huge stepping stone to finding applicable experience that people would recognize and look at amongst the other candidates. This was something that could stand out. Excuse me for 1 second. So, so with that experience, that grew from there. I was able to get in the door, and I was helping people. I was helping clientele and prospective clients for these group of partners here in Provo to bring people in to transfer over their 401ks and other programs like that. But through subsequent conversations, I also found that there was another internship opportunity available in Colorado Springs with the same company with different partners. And each of these internships with Merrill Lynch that I did were unpaid. So I kind of funded my own way. And that was a sacrifice in the beginning, but it paid off. And every job interview that I've had since has asked me about my experiences with Merrill Lynch. You know, how did you get that? What did you do? What were some of the things that you learned? And I'd like to follow this up with something that happened a couple years before the Merrill Lynch opportunity. And I want to tell you all about something developmental for me, but it started out as the worst summer of my life, okay? I'm sure we can all look back at different points in our life and think, wow, this was a really low point. This was really frustrating. So I served an LDS mission in Peru. I had a mission buddy of mine by the name of Tyler Tuttle call me up, and he said, Spencer, I was just in the transition. I was finishing up BYU Idaho, or Ricks College at the time, and I was going to transfer the following semester to here, BYU Provo. He calls me up and he says, what are you doing for the summer? I said, I'm selling pest control. And he said, why did you come sell satellite dishes with me? And I was like, okay. I mean, don't you know that everybody makes $100,000 in 4 months? I mean, you're guaranteed to make so much money you don't know what to do with it. And so I thought, let's go sell satellite dishes. So we were to go out to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and sell satellite dishes for the summer. I was one of about 20 reps in his office, okay? Let me tell you how the journey went. These are little notes from somewhat of a diary or a journal, okay? Day one, leaving Utah, I was pulled over in Wyoming by a highway patrolman and an FBI agent. They said, quote unquote, I looked suspicious because my car was packed to the brim. And apparently this is a crossroads in the United States for a lot of narcotics traffic. So they questioned what I was doing in Wyoming, where I was headed, and if I had any narcotics or my own personal stash. I said, officer, I don't even drink caffeine, let alone smoke or drink or have any type of narcotics. So they asked me to get out of the car, put my hands on the trunk, and they patted me down, looked through the car, didn't find anything, and they said, we appreciate your cooperation, have a great day. All right, so back on the road to Pittsburgh. Day two, pulled over in Indiana by a highway patrolman. A plane with a radar had saw that I was going 9 miles over the speed limit and stopped me and pulled me over and gave me a traffic citation. I thanked the officer for fighting crime. Day five, first day selling. Okay, we're ready to start making our 6 figures. I landed the first sale in the office. It was incredible. The customer told me, he says, I want to cancel my DirecTV membership right now. We were selling Dish Network. He says, I want to cancel my DirecTV. I'm paying way too much. I said, sir, please, whatever you do, wait till I get it set up. Then you can make sure everything's working fine and cancel. And he refused to listen to my advice. And he kept telling me every few minutes, he's like, I'm on the phone with their customer service rep, and they're trying to offer me like 6 free months. They're crazy. I'm not going to do that. And I said, sir, please don't do this. Well, I couldn't find a satellite signal. He canceled his program. He passed up all those free offers. And he cussed me up one side and down the other for a full, evening. And the next day, he continued the same thing. He had to go back to DirecTV, and it was a very difficult experience for me to deal with, okay? Day 14, there's a point to all of this. I'll get to it. This is just in the first 6 days, okay? Day 14, I'm sitting on top of a roof that's made of slate, okay, or the chalkboard material, about 40 feet above the ground at 2 a.m. in the morning. For 6 hours, I'm trying to find a satellite dish signal. I can't get anything to work. 2 days later, we find the signal. The lady signs up, and 2 days after that, she cancels because she couldn't find the BET channel. Day 25, car overheats, $500, see you later. Day 30, I'm thinking to myself, this isn't anything like the mission. Why do people say it's just like the mission, going out and selling door to door? Day 40, car overheats. $750 later, see you later. Why did I rely on a car that had over 200,000 miles? And day 53, car loses power. Goodbye to $600. Aren't Toyotas supposed to be reliable? So these are some of the experiences that I faced that summer. In addition, there were successes, but over and over and over, there was failure, 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 failure. And the reason I share this story, and I'll come back to this towards the end, is that there is no journey that we're going to take in developing our careers that's not going to be met with some temporary failures. If you're not expecting it, you should. It's going to be okay. Continue to pursue your course. A couple of other experiences that I had later on. So I got the experience with Merrill Lynch. I had the sales experience from the satellite dish company. And each of these experiences helped me in my interviewing process. Going to the Black & Decker position that I had, before I received the position, I was in a less than desirable career experience with one of the companies I worked with. And the advice that I'm going to share here is, whatever you're doing, commit to it with everything that you've got, because you never know who is watching. I was approached by a friend. I was working virtually around the clock at this point. I was approached by a friend, and he said, I work for Black & Decker. And he says, I see you're working your tail off. You're very diligent in what you're doing. Would it be okay if I forwarded your resume on to my organization for one of their management programs that they have? And it blew my mind. I had no clue that he was watching. I had no clue that this was even available. And a few months later, I hired on with Black & Decker. It was a great experience. In the late 1990s, early 2000s, Harvard Business Review printed an article talking about the days of it's not what you know, but who you know are over. Now, what's most important is not who you know, but who knows you. To be able to create positions for yourself throughout your career that have people looking for you, people seeking you out, is the strongest position you could be in and the best recommendation you could have while going into pursuing and developing your career. That was the case there, and Black & Decker grew into an incredible experience. I was, as Corey briefly mentioned, part of a Hispanic marketing committee, or Hispanic marketing coordinator. There was, out of all the field marketing coordinators, there were hundreds of us throughout the United States. You were in charge of, we were working in DeWalt Power Tools in the Industrial Power Tool division. And we were in charge of big tool deals for various construction companies. And they selected 13 of us to be on the Hispanic marketing committee to travel around and develop relationships with Hispanic contractors throughout the United States. We put on soccer tournaments, we put on huge sales events, but what this did was it opened the door for more visibility and for future opportunities. And to be able to go back to the Kennedy Center, one of the core principles that I learned through the program and through MUN was the ability to work with people with diverse backgrounds. Being able to understand those types of contractors, those contractors with different backgrounds, being able to communicate with them, opened up doors that were not open to other people. That was a great experience for me. And subsequent to that, following that, I made the decision that I saw the housing market was starting to really soften, and I was in Atlanta, Georgia at that time. And I knew, one of my career goals was always pursue your MBA. Your education helps to differentiate, helps to open new doors. And I wanted to come back to Utah. And so I talked to a friend of mine who had a connection here, and I was able to interview and receive a position with Yellow Book. Can I ask, by a show of hands, who here still uses the Yellow Pages? Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds if you don't want to admit it in front of a group of people. Does anybody? Nobody. All right, thank you very much. How many people use the internet? Everybody? I mean, you better. I see an iPhone in your hand, right? Yes. So For the last 3.5 years, virtually, I've been working for Yellow Book, Yellow Pages, and we do, as a media consultant, but we also work in the internet advertising, SEM, SEO. But on a daily basis, I would walk in and knock doors on business, knock into businesses and ask them if they were interested in a marketing program that would help, their business show up in multifaceted forms of media. And every single day I heard, nobody still uses the Yellow Pages, are you kidding? And part of me had to agree. I use the internet, but a lot of people still were using that. The reason I chose that career experience was because it was going to be direct business-to-business selling. And the direct business-to-business selling provided me the ability to develop further skill sets that I would want later on in business. Can you walk into a room of complete strangers and turn them into clients? Can you negotiate when things seem impossible? Can you stand behind your product line and show that it's viable, show that it's providing benefits to people? This is the skill set that I was developing. Not that I wanted a career in the Yellow Pages industry, but I wanted experience in business-to-business selling. With that opportunity, I found out my sister is doing the MBA program here at BYU. And she informed me several months back about a conference called NSHMBA. NSHMBA is the National Society of Hispanic MBAs. Anybody can go to this conference, but it's a career fair where about 250 of the Fortune's top 500 companies go to interview. And where I was doing my master's degree, there weren't a whole lot of companies that I was interested in interviewing there. So I flew out at my own expense to this conference. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. My friend Tyler that I sold satellite dishes with so many summers ago, I was the only person to stay that whole summer out of the office of 21 people. I was the only person to stay that whole summer with him from beginning to end, even though sometimes the experiences were rotten. But I told him that I would be there, and I remained there the whole time, and I stayed true to my word. 10 years later, when I saw that GE was going to be at this conference, I called up Tyler and I said, hey, you've been through some of GE's management programs before. Who do you recommend that I talk to? I applied online and had a phone interview scheduled. Tyler said, send me your resume. I sent him my resume, and Tyler sent it on to other people. And they called me up, canceled my phone interview, and decided to interview me in person out in Chicago at this NSHMBA conference. I want to tell you that because of who Tyler is in that organization, because of the brand that he's created for himself, his career trajectory, he's got a lot of credibility within that organization. So instead of going through just a phone interview and then flying out to final rounds, I was actually able to interview with one of the CEOs of one of the GE Capital businesses in their commercial finance business and get face-to-face time with him. Now, I still had to do the interview myself, but doors were opened a decade later from a commitment that I made and I stayed true to 10 years earlier. I want to tell you that staying true to your word and giving everything you've got to your commitments will open doors for you in the future, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I never expected it. I had to pass the interviews, but doors were opened to give me a better audience. And I want to tell you that through these experiences, sometimes it's choppy. Sometimes you get into a job that you don't feel very, very good about long term. There's always ways to build off of our previous experiences. And I want to tell you, in conclusion, before we open it up, a final experience that I had on May 6th, 2011, here just a few weeks ago. May 6th was where we had our commencement and graduation from the business school there at the University of Utah. And I'm very grateful for that degree. it was very hard because I did the professional program. So I worked full-time during the day and went to school full-time at night. And when I received the GE offer, I had to finish school earlier than my program was scheduled to, so I had to do 2 semesters at once. And it was a grueling process, do 2 semesters and working full-time during a lot of that. When I got home from graduation on May 6th, got the cap and gown in hand, the degree is earned, it's finished. Walking into the front door, I had to step over the latest copy of the Yellow Book Yellow Pages that was laid at the doorstep. And it was a little sign to me, it was a little tender mercy, if you will, saying, congratulations. It wasn't the easiest, but look what you've done. And what I've learned in my almost 8 years of career experience post, undergrad, there is no one way to get to where you want to go. Continue to put effort, continue to move in that direction. Doors will open. Things that you might have thought were so long ago could actually play a vital role to your doors opening for you in your career. And that's my message to everybody here today. Don't give up easy. There's going to be parts where you feel like you're losing the forest through the trees. But if you pursue your goals and you develop the ideas through experience of where you want to head, you can get there. I am experiencing that in my own personal career. And I share that with you in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Is that? It's been so long since but I share that with you. That's my experience. So do you all have any questions?
Since we're such a small group, if there are questions that everybody wants to ask as a group, let's do that now. And then
Absolutely.
if people have individual questions they feel uncomfortable, we can break and just kind of mingle.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we've got a mic, so make it even more uncomfortable. Do you have any group questions they want to ask?
All right.
We'll clap and then we'll mingle. Too scary, like begin.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Thank you all.